Very nice. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Can you all stand up and have a stretch or something? It's early morning. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. Happy hump day, everyone. Say hi to the person next to you. You know in church when they always say hi to the person next to you and whatever? I hate that moment because it's always so awkward. My friend in New York calls it 2 minutes of forced friendship, and I really am comfortable with that. All right. Do you know everybody now? You've been forced into friendship? Those of you who have busied yourself on your phone and have ignored that instruction, I get you. Gentleman in the orange shirt, whatever is happening on your phone, I can't imagine how important it is. Would you like to share it with the group? Wouldn't you hate that? You know, in school, remember when you, well, I don't know, I remember I was always in trouble. As you can imagine, I talked a lot. And you know when you're passing notes in school, did you ever pass notes? Kim, you must have passed a note or two. We would have passed notes. Marion King and I would have gotten in so much trouble in school. Anyway, and the teacher always said, all right, Susan, we're going to read that to the class. Oh my word, how I shook with fear. Imagine now if they took our phones and read everything. Would a few of you shake in fear? Oh, come on. Thank you. You know what? I love coming to this conference. My first time was last year. And Dwayne Jeffries, you soothe everything. The voices that I hear on the platform, mine doesn't do it justice at all. I don't have the radio voice. I sometimes get that screechy voice. But you guys, it's like someone's telling me bedtime stories all week. So thank you in advance for that. It's like coming to a spa. I'm going to go away so relaxed because I've listened to the Phil Edwards of the world, lulling me into... Anyway, who am I? I am Susan Sohn. I am married to Philip, who is in the front row. Thank you. My lovely husband. We've been married for 20-some years. We have 3 incredible children. And I am what they call the social media girl. I love social media. You know they used to say, I don't know, tell the newspaper, tell whoever, tell Susan. And I can get a message out there. So I am what they call an engagement specialist. And really what that means is I love people. I really like people. And I like finding out what makes people tick. I like learning about people. And I love learning about how people move make decisions about different things. From a young child, I remember when we would watch TV as a family, my parents found me awfully strange because the TV show would be on, and I would leave the room when the show was on, and I'd say, call me when the ads come on. Call me when the ads are on. I loved advertising. I loved that whole world of how people can give you a message, can show you a product, and can then encourage you to go from just hearing about it, however many times they tell us we need to hear something, and then all of a sudden we move from whatever they're telling us into this transaction where we discover that we really needed that iPhone, Steve Jobs. You told me that I would be smarter. You told me that I was creative. You told me that I needed all of your technology to make my world a better place, and I believed it, and I have now seen the light. I am an Apple person. Is anybody else with me? Has anybody else bought that? You guys have to wake up a little bit. Thank you, Stu Harris. I knew you got that. All right, so what have I done? I have created platforms where really there wasn't anything for me. In my last years of high school, I started my first business with my sister. In 1988, we were recognized as the Young Entrepreneurs of Canada. And we had a business, so there was a lot of men in this room. You would have loved me. We manufactured and leased out maternity clothing. How smart is that? You guys would have saved a lot of money had you known me in 1988. Anyway, we started that business, and it was doing really well, and we had the opportunity to go to Hong Kong. And so my sister was in love. I wasn't, and I thought, I'll go. I'll go for 1 year, I'll set us all up, and I'm heading back to Canada. I'm a Canadian girl. Any Canadians with us today? There we are. Lorna, so nice to meet you. We've tweeted, we've been in different spaces socially. Nice to meet you face to face. And so I went to Hong Kong. I thought, that's it, I'll be there for a year. Well, a week into walking the streets of Hong Kong and seeing the sights, the smells, and everything that that city provides, I realized I found my place. I found my people. I found my city. This small town girl who was raised in the prairies of Canada, I come from a town of 998 people, hence the reason I know how to engage and communicate. We're all family. We know each other really well. But I found my people. And so a week into my Hong Kong year, I knew I was there. I knew I was there for a reason. I knew that this is where God had me. Strangely, but I knew it was there. And then a few months into it, I had this, I guess, life-changing introduction. And it came by way of a guy who wanted to ask me out. Can I get personal? You comfortable? Okay, thank you. This guy wanted to ask me out, and so he said to his buddy, he brought the wingman along, so you got to come check out this girl, this Canadian girl. I'm going to ask her out. I don't know. I just want you to check her out, as guys, I guess, do. And lo and behold, his wingman was my husband. So Hong Kong became home to me for 10 years. And in that time, I had extraordinary opportunities offered to me as a really young girl. I started my career in media with the South China Morning Post. I got hired by this really hard boss, and he was such a difficult guy to work with. But gosh, I look back at those years, and I'm so grateful he was so hard on me. And he taught me so many things, and he was a printing specialist, and he used to make me go down in with him to the printing area, and he showed me, he said, you have to learn this. You have to understand media and what we do isn't just when you get it into the hands of the individual and they read it, there's so much more that goes into it. And he wanted me to learn from the floor of the editors and the sub-editors, all the way from when the ink hit the paper to the moment it loads on the trucks and is sent out through the streets of Hong Kong and into the hands of the people who were reading it. And I'm so grateful that he taught me that. I'm so grateful, and many of you have seen that in your industries. With that job, I managed Asia's largest English language magazine at the time. So I worked in Hong Kong, and I looked after the whole Asia region. And it was a huge job, and I was really young and really out of my depth, but I loved it. I fell in the deep end, and I dog paddled my way all the way to the shallow end and finally figured out a few things that I was doing. And isn't it the way with media? Once you figure out what you're doing, then it all changes really, really quickly. Is there anybody in here who's finding that this whole, what Mark was talking about, and by the way, Mark, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I loved your stats. I knew you'd have great stats, and I wouldn't have to do any, so thank you, because I hate doing those things. But do you find that it's changing at a really rapid pace, and you're thinking, how do we actually keep up? Every day you wake up and there's a new piece added to the technology. There's a new bit added to your website or to your blog or to Instagram or Facebook, and you just kind of look at it and go, how do we engage with this client base? Is there anybody out there that's struggling with that? A few heads nodding. All right, we'll go into the other room and I'll tell you what to do. The rest can all sit in here and talk amongst themselves. It is changing, you know, and I like the word engagement, and I like, I'm going to start this. There we go. No, hang on. That's me, guys. Engagement, the game changer. That's what I'm talking about. Engagement is the game changer. How many of you in this room are on Facebook? Okay. How many of you are on Twitter? How many of you are on LinkedIn? Those of you who aren't, you need to be on there. Seriously, it is one of the best places. I love LinkedIn. How many of you are on Instagram? How many of you are on Snapchat? Oh, Susan J. Sohn, follow me. I'm so good at Snapchat. My kids can't believe I'm on it, and I love it. I've been snapping all morning, by the way, so Mark Dando, you are on Snapchat. Anyway, social media is changing so quickly, and engagement is the game changer. And I want to talk to you about it because I understand and I know that, you know, we heard that I did grow a Facebook. It wasn't my Facebook page. I did grow a Facebook page from 35,000, totally messed up, about 5 different pages that this person had, and I took it from that, and I've grown it to over 1.4 million now in under 2 years, and it has engaged people. This particular client is an author, and they've written a number of books, and we got a call a couple of weeks ago, or a couple months ago, and Krista works with me on some of this stuff, and we got a call saying, from the publishing house that this author is published through, and they said, you're not going to believe it. Amazon has made the single largest buy of a single title in the history of our publishing company. In the history. And the only thing different they did was they gave me a few dollars to play with, and we played with those few dollars really, really well. That was the only thing they did differently in their marketing plan. And we implemented a Facebook strategy that changed the historical story of that company. Social media has the ability, and true, authentic, engaged social media has the ability to change overnight. You know things have gone viral. Do you ever sit back and wonder, how do cat videos go viral? Who are these people that are constantly watching cat videos? I don't watch them. I don't get it. A cat with a Santa hat can get 2 million hits in 4 hours. What is that? We've got the greatest story. We have got the truth. We have got the story of Jesus. We are telling it in so many ways, but we're not getting the same hits as a cat video. There's a disconnect somewhere. And the disconnect, I have to say, and I say it with all respect, comes in the form of our content. Are we creating compelling content? And I dare you to look back and look at your stuff and see, really look with a critical eye and say, is my content, is the content that our organization is putting out, is it something that I would even click on? Because I dare say, and thank you for prefacing that I will push the envelope a little bit, I dare say that many of you, like me, have looked at the best story, the greatest story on the planet, the truth of Jesus, and we have looked at it and we have been embarrassed. Has anybody been embarrassed? Because we aren't presenting the gospel and the beauty of who Jesus is and the beauty of salvation in a way that is compelling. We need to create compelling content. If a cat with a Christmas hat beats us, something's wrong. Where are our conversations landing? How do we expect anybody to engage anything that we don't even want to engage in? And I'm not saying that across the board. I don't want to be harsh because there is some great stuff out there. And we share it and we plug it and we do everything. But I do it to myself all the time. I love asking my husband questions. I'll say, is this good? I send things out to friends going, what do you think? Before I publish an article, I always send it to there's a handful of trusted friends, and they'll always see my top line says, be ruthless. Be ruthless, because I want to create compelling content that people will gravitate towards. I want the truth to be revealed in every word, and I want it to be something that people will share. We want our things shared, don't we? We want the information that we have. We want people to engage with us. So engagement is the game changer. You know, engagement is a very intimate conversation. I think back to when my husband proposed to me. And he did get down on bended knee. I married that guy. He got down on bended knee, and I remember the thoughts going through my head. Engagement is about trust, it's about communication, and it's about promises. Steve Jobs promised me that I would be more creative, that I would fit in, that I would be within a crowd of people, a company of people who got me. He promised me that. He communicated that to me by creating compelling content that I gravitated towards. I trusted that. I believed it. I am there. I will never go to the dark side. I will never be a PC person. Thank you. Thank you. If I can't get a hand clap for the cat video, maybe I can for Steve and his products. But engagement is about, it is that kiss. It is that kiss where you actually want to lean in and you want to say, yes, I want to go with you. I want to go on this journey with you. I want to see us in 50 years. The Christian Channel, we want people to see in 50 years that they have engaged in this conversation. They have trusted you. You have created compelling content that they want, that they crave every morning. Every day. We want them to come back. We want this relationship, which is something that needs to transition into a transactional relationship. My husband needed me to say, yes, put that ring on my finger. Not a single lady anymore. I'm trusting you. I'm going down this path with you. It's going to be bumpy at times. I get it. We're going to make mistakes at times. I get it. But I go into this engagement with eyes open, exciting. I'm going to trust what's happening. I'm going to listen to the promises. We have big numbers. Big numbers mean a crowd, but engagement means community. You know, we have spent time, and I know many of you have spent time wanting people to like your Facebook page. Have you spent time going, how many more likes can we get? How many more hearts can we get? How many more followers on Instagram can we get? How many more YouTube subscribers can we get? Have you spent time looking at those numbers? We need to look at things in a different way. Big crowds, they're just crowds. You want an engaged community. 5 people who are engaged with you and who are believing with you and who are on the same page are way better than 20 people who kind of give it the flick every day. I want to tell you a story about Kimberly. Now, part of my journey has been, I did conference marketing for 7 years for Hillsong Conference. I was the girl who got bums on seats. Bottom line, that's what I needed to do. And I did a really good job at it. And I did it in a very grassroots level. I said, and this was before social media was happening. I said, let's go back and let's go grassroots. Let's talk to the pastors. Let's find the pastors who we can speak to and who we can say, we want to have your people there because you make a difference. So not just this big marketing campaign, but let's really get into the faces of people and let's really engage with them. And so with everything I do, when I'm doing my radio show, when I'm creating a new podcast, when I'm writing an article, I think of Kimberly. Now, Kimberly is a real person. She travels with me, not physically. This may sound a bit weird, through the recesses of my mind. Kimberly is always there, and I'll tell you why. Think of your radio show. Think of your television show. Think of your event that you want somebody to come to. Think of your barbecue fundraiser. Think of your not-for-profit. Whatever it is and whatever space you occupy, we all want people to go into that transactional relationship in some way, shape, or form, correct? So I want to know if you've got a Kimberly in your mind. Kimberly is a mom. She's married to Bruce. Kimberly has 3 kids. Kimberly wants to live a strong, confident life. She loves God. Bruce is more interested in soccer, and he's that guy that sits on the couch on the weekends tossing the ball back and forth. Gets up when he's hungry or needs a scratch or the bathroom. Do we all know Bruce? Do we know a Bruce? We know a Bruce. Kimberly is sitting at work. She works full-time. Kimberly's sitting at work, and something pops up on her computer. And it's an event. And she wants to go to this event. And she looks at it and she thinks, oh my gosh, this is what I need. Look at the speakers, look at the lineup. I want to go to this. And then she thinks, I gotta get Bruce on board. So she gets all the information. She does the budget before she gets home. She thinks about all the details, how she can attend this with her kids. There's a teen program. It accommodates the whole family. But how does she do this without disrupting everything? So she goes home and she thinks, oh, God, please let Bruce's team have won, because if they've won, he's going to be in a good mood. The women are laughing because they know that this sometimes happens. She gets home and thankfully Bruce's team has won. So she sits down and she says, Bruce, I want to go to something. I found something. Something popped up on my screen today and I want to go to something. So Bruce listens and he grunts a little bit and thinks, oh yeah, she'll be out of my hair for the weekend so I can watch the game all weekend. And he says, well, if it's not going to affect our bottom line, just go. Have a good time. He's a really nice guy. Just go. Take the kids. It'll be great. So the day of the event comes. Kimberly takes her stuff to work. She takes shoes, interesting shoes to wear to an event, but you got to look good. She picks her kids up from school. She hits the freeway. She hits traffic. She sits there. She's still got a great attitude because all the way along after she registered, some smart social media person has been connecting with her all the way and saying, you know what, Kimberly, you matter. Kimberly, we want you there. You are significant. Your presence is going to make a difference to the entire thing that's happening. And so she fights the traffic and she gets through. She gets to the event and she meets the parking attendant who tells her that her parking spot is a half a kilometer on the other side of the building. She looks down at her feet with her painful shoes and she goes, I can do this, because every girl knows if the shoes are painful but they look good, it's so worth it. So Kimberly goes and she finds her parking spot. She's fed the kids on the way, but she knows that the overpriced food in the venue isn't in the budget. So she knows that venue, and she thinks, if I enter this door, they won't really see the food stalls. These are real things that people think about. People that we're trying to get to transact with us. And so she gets into the venue. The kids don't see the overpriced food. She breathes a sigh of relief. She gets them settled. She meets this beautiful volunteer who says to her, we're so glad you're here. This is door A, and your seat is in door F. If you just make your way all the way around the building. She once again looks down at her shoes and thinks, I can do this, I can do this. She walks in. She sees that her seat is in the middle of the aisle. She stumbles, you know when you stumble over everybody and step in their bags and on their drink and all that stuff? She did all that. She plunks down in her seat. And after all of that, she's happy. She's happy because we have engaged with her the entire way through, and we have not dropped the ball. You know, one of the most surprising things that I hear from organizations, and sadly, many of the Christian organizations I work with, I say to them, do you listen? Do you go back and read comments? Oh, no. No, you don't read comments. You don't read what people say. Are you kidding me? You're asking people, you're getting down on bended knee, and you're asking people to engage with you on your terms, and you're not prepared to walk across and listen to what they have to say, even if it's negative? Dare say somebody say something negative about any of us. Anybody have anybody say anything negative about them? It happens. That's part of the bumps of engagement. It will happen. But all of that information helps us. All of that information is called engagement. We can't ask people to come on this journey and go through this transaction and then stop and say, you know what? We're actually only going to talk to you when it suits us. Is that okay? You're all looking a little bit quiet now. I love reading comments. Freaks me out sometimes, but I love it. So Kimberly. Who is your Kimberly? Who do you think about when you're planning your radio show? Who do you think about? I think about all the things that can impact her. And how do I, as an engagement specialist, how do I engage with her along the way, reminding her that really, if she wasn't listening, if the Kimberlys of the world aren't engaging with us, we really don't have anything. We're just talking in hot air and hoping that it lands somewhere. So I guess what I'm saying to you is that whole broadcast thing that we've been used to, where the one who holds the mic and has the most money owns the airwaves, doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. I have a radio show which was mentioned. You know how that started? I was blogging. I was an early blogger. I started in 2005, and I thought, wow, first article I put out, millions of readers. I'm going to be one of those cats with the Santa hat on, off the mark. So I get up every morning. I was so excited to look at the back end of my blog spot, and it had a little globe. Do you remember the globe that you could look at? And I'd see dotted around Canada, Melbourne, USA, Korea. I was so excited. I was reaching the world with my writing. And I realized it was family. It was my mom and dad, my sister-in-law in Korea, my friend in Melbourne. I was reaching the world with family. So anyways, I kept doing it, and I think I often talked about those times as the dark days, but I don't anymore. I talk about them as the quiet days, because that was almost like God giving me this opportunity to really figure out what it is and who I wanted to engage with and how I was going to engage with them. So I started to do something totally different, and it is rocket science. Are you guys ready? This is a secret. Heard it here first. How did I figure out what people wanted to hear about? What they wanted me to talk about on the radio, what they wanted me to write about? Any ideas? I asked them. I went out socially, and I used social media, and I said, hey, friends, all 5 listeners, what do you guys want to hear? And I went on to Facebook, and I went on to all these spaces and said, what would you like to hear? And I started to create content, compelling content, based on what they said. Rocket science, right? Really challenging. I said I come from a town of 998 people. We know how to do community really well. We live it, we breathe it. I also, this clicker is, there it is. I also had the opportunity of being raised by a politician, hence the reason maybe I know how to talk. My father was a very prominent politician in Canada before social media, way before, 70s and 80s. And I remember as a young girl walking up the streets, or walking up the doorway to some of his constituents, and this little girl holding this man's hand, and he'd knock on the door, and we'd sit at the kitchen table. And I remember him looking at people in the eye and saying, how can we help you? What are the challenges that you're facing right now? What are the needs of this community? And I remember listening to that and thinking, he knows he can't solve every need, but he's bringing everybody into the conversation so everybody has a voice. Steve Jobs did just that. He brought us into the conversation and gave us a voice. True engagement is about looking people in the eye and having the conversation. Some of you more seasoned ones in the room, Rick Broom, the wise, the wisdom in this room, you've sat around tables and you've thought, don't these kids know how to look anybody in the eye anymore? Don't they know how to do this? You know what that's like. Social media is just like that. Don't think that because you're behind a keyboard and you become some sort of keyboard warrior, don't think that that's how you engage. Engage on social media the way you would engage in this space. The way when we go to coffee break, you're going to sit and talk to someone. Engage in that manner. The same way you do. I love this one. Here we've got the family sitting around the TV, broadcast. The person who had the mic and the airwaves told the story, and we listened. The radio, same thing. Then we've got Modern Family. And then in the bottom corner, we've got Claire, desperately trying to scream above the sound bites and the sound in her home. We are being drowned out by so many sound bites. What content are you creating that is going to rise above all of that? Are you creating compelling content? In 2015, Uber, the world's largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, the world's most popular media owner, creates no content. Alibaba, the most valuable retailer, has no inventory. And Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate. Airbnb tells us to belong anywhere. They tell us we're now sleeping in strangers' beds. We're drinking out of their coffee cups. We're jumping in cars that we assume are taxis because engagement has told us this works. They've engaged with us. They've told us that we can belong anywhere, and so we believe it. I've talked about Apple. I've talked about how Steve Jobs created a space for us and told us that we would belong. He invited us into a conversation by creating compelling content and then creating products that stay true to the promise. Virgin, Richard Branson, is known for jumping on airplanes and flying in economy class to see what the experience is like for people. He's also been known to say that he hires people who smile and are positive over brains. He believes you can teach anybody anything. He understands that his brand needs to engage with people. We all know that a smiling person is easier to talk to and bump into than one who frowns all the time and their face looks like the world is upside down. Richard Branson understands that. Peter Alexander, pajama store in Australia. My daughter works for them. She told me, you know, Mom, their policy is that if anybody walks into the shop and looks like they're upset, give them 15% off. Peter Alex, so all you women, walk in, look like your world is upside down. Peter Alexander knows that $2.50 that he's going to save, or that he's going to spend, is going to translate into $2,950, because every woman's going to walk out of there. And Mark Dando told us that women are the way to the future with all this stuff. Every woman is going to Snapchat, screenshot, upload, post, tweet, Instagram the picture of Peter Alexander. And that $2.50 or $2.49 that he just spent has just traveled so far. We can learn a lot from these guys. We need to create compelling content. If content is king, then engagement is our queen. We have got the greatest story on the planet. We have got the truth that sets captives free. We need to create content. We need to be brave enough to look at what we're creating. We need to find those people in the room who aren't going to be the yes men. Find some of the no men in your world and ask them, is this great? Is this what we should be putting out? And be brave enough to hear no. And be brave enough to go back to the drawing board and recreate. The Creator is the one who lives and breathes through each one of us. We need to tap into that. We need to use that. We need to push boundaries, break the ceilings. Someone texted me the other day and said, Susan, I'm so proud of you going and speaking at this conference. May the ceilings that you now know become your floor. And I thought, wow, that is so beautiful. Within your organizations, your radio station, your TV programs, your blogs, your website, your whatever it is that you are creating, may the ceiling that you now have, and if it's a content ceiling, may it become your floor. May you push boundaries. If content is king, then engagement is our queen. We need to remember Kimberly. You need to find your Kimberly. Find that person. Get that image in your head and figure out who it is you're speaking to. Learn your audience. Steve Jobs knew us. He knew us before he created the product because he was one of us. He created products that he loved. Richard Branson creates products that he will use. Let's create stuff that we are actually proud of, that we want to go, here you go. This is the way, the truth, and the life. This points you to that. Create stuff that everyone in this room would share on your behalf. Who's your Kimberly? I'll never forget the lessons I learned from my dad, and I remember in closing, I was working, I also, in my media days in Hong Kong, I had the opportunity to represent the New York Times, the San Francisco Chronicle, Dallas Morning News, and the Globe and Mail. I was their rep for all of Asia. I was the one that brought money in for them. I was young. Again, I was in the deep end, dog paddling so hard. And I remember that I had to go to New York for a conference. They had invited me, and I was terrified. Here I am, this young girl who had been given this extraordinary opportunity. Now, in hindsight, I can see the hand of God all through that. But I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And I'm invited to New York, and I go to this conference. And before I went, I phoned my dad, and I said, Dad, I'm terrified. I have to walk in, and I don't know what to do. And this brilliant communicator said to me, Susie, he's the only one that can call me that, by the way. Don't even try it. Don't even go there. Anyway, he said, Susie, you walk into that, and I was walking into a ballroom much like this. He said, you open the doors, and you walk in like you own the place, respectfully. And he said, you look, and you scan the room. Ignore the loud talkers. Ignore the clusters of people. Ignore the sound bites is what he was telling me. And he said, walk across the room and find the person who's holding their coffee cup with the folder under their arm that's just as scared as you. And engage with that person and talk to that person and find out everything about that person. And then begin to tell that person's story in conversation. And before long, you will create a space and you will feel so comfortable and you will feel like you belong. So I guess as we think about engagement and as we think about it as the game changer, whether we think about it as a kiss, whether we think about it as down on bended knee, I want to encourage you. The way that I have built our Get Real Live brand and our Somo Society brand is we have truly engaged with people. We have listened. We have taken that social experience and we have I guess, visualized ourselves talking face to face with someone. We have engaged with people and we've listened. Engagement is the game changer. Thank you.
There are some people that you just wish you get stuck next to on a plane. Susan's one of those. There are some people you try to put the headphones on before you got the seatbelt on, but Susan's not one of those. Thank you, Susan. That's awesome. Susie. Before we go take a tea break, Josh, where's Josh Hawkins? Josh, my man.